And so I sent that last week's show. I sent that to Mr. Durbin through Facebook, and then I sent it also to his church. He's the pastor of Apologia Church in, I believe it's Tucson, Arizona. And I wrote and said, I don't expect you to watch this. Because you know what, honestly, people send me, they send me videos that are an hour long, pretty much 2 to 3 to 4 times a day. I'll get things like that. So I don't have time to, unfortunately, I wish I did, but I don't have time to just sit down and watch YouTube all day long. That would be nice, but I don't. So I don't expect Mr. Durbin to sit down and watch our show either. But actually, someone at Apologia Church actually got back to me. They said Mr. Durbin is away on a mission trip right now. And this is the response that they gave me. They said, and very respectful, by the way. I was delighted to have this interaction with whoever it was who was responding to me. They said, "Hey, Caleb, I listened to about 15 minutes. Respectfully, it is clear that you are not aware of our position or where Jeff is coming from. I would encourage you to think about taking this show down and doing more research before trying to respond. I mean this with no ill will or disrespect, but you made a lot of false assumptions in just a short section I watched. A little homework will go a long way. I very much appreciate the kindness with which you spoke, but just to be honest, it was hard to watch because of all of the assumptions you made. For your own credibility, I'd encourage you to consider this. God bless." Now, after this, the person then sent me a link, which is in your show notes. And the link is to a search on the Apologia Church website, or Apologia Radio website. And all the person did was search law, and then posted a link to the search results. And there is a substantial amount that Mr. Durbin has done on the law. And I will openly and thankfully say that unlike many Christians, Mr. Durbin is very what I would call pro-law in what he says a lot of the time. So he's fought for the idea that the law is not done away with. He's fought for the idea, and I spent about 3.5 hours yesterday listening to Mr. Durbin speak on law. He has been in debates defending the idea that Christians should keep the law, so on and so forth. So there's a huge amount of that. There's credibility that I can give to Mr. Durbin in that a lot of what he has said and a lot of what he has fought for, I would agree with, right? I would say yes, but I'll give you one example. So I listened to one of the shows that he did, and I think it was actually the most recent one that came up in that search. And for the whole show, for about an hour, he's talking about law and how it's good and all these kind of things. And then he says, it's not, we as Christians keep Passover. And I thought, well, great. That's awesome. But then in the same breath, he says, we don't take the leaven out of our house. Instead, now we take the malice out of our lives. Paul tells us, therefore take malice out of your heart. So that's how, so it's almost this double speak because, and once again,
it's allegory.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to but this is the interesting thing about what he's doing. He's saying that it wasn't allegory before Christ came, but then it became allegory. So now we do it in the heart. It's not all of it, but parts of it we do in the heart. And, he's real big on Matthew 5:17, not the least of these commandments. Well, is taking leaven out of your house one of the least of these commandments? I would say if it is one of the least of these commandments, Yeshua tells us don't even think that it's done away with. Not until heaven and earth pass away. And so the idea that this all becomes allegory, and maybe not all, maybe that's too broad of a statement for what Mr. Durbin believes and teaches. But the idea that if I keep a kosher diet and I teach others that they need to be keeping a kosher diet because that's what Scripture says, or that you should be keep taking the leaven out of your house during Passover because that's what the Scripture says, or that you should circumcise your son on the 8th day because that's what Scripture says, guess what? He's putting me in capital H heretic land. This is doublespeak.
Well, it divides the person.
Right.
It divides the person to your true personhood is not in this world.
Right.
And there's and in one, Yeshua says, be in this world, but not of this world. What does that mean? he said, for example, when he's kind of castigating the Pharisees, I think is it Matthew 23? You leave you neglect the weightiest matters of the Torah, and even though you tithe minute things like even your cumin, you're tithing, right? All this dill and cumin, and he says you should do all of it. You should. It's not that you should just do the weightiest matters of the Torah, which is love of God, etc. But what does he say? And not leave the other undone.
Don't miss any clips from Messiah Matters by clicking the subscribe button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and share it so other people can see it too.